Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
Hey, this is, of course, the podcast where we talk with advocates and members of the disability community to educate and inspire better conversation about disability. Hey, my name is Rob Minot, and joining me today, this fine day, Mr. Ramflery.
And I'm going to spoil the fun. Mike, yours did not come through.
What?
So
It
you
didn't?
probably got to turn original audio on.
Nope.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we heard
Yeah, I
nothing.
know, we blew it. You already blew it.
Wow. So sad. I brought a bell and everything.
Oh,
Am I supposed to be educational, inspirational? Because I don't know if I'm going to meet that grade, man.
It's a technological failure.
That's
It was
right.
due. Hey, look who else it is. It's Steve Barkley.
where? Yeah. Oh, that's me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, how are you guys doing on this momentous day?
It's cold out.
Well, you guys just got through Thanksgiving, right?
We did.
Yummy.
Yesterday.
What'd you have?
Turkey.
You guys eat turkey also? We don't eat turkey any other time of year because it's nasty.
What? Oh, yeah. Turkey's fantastic.
Nah.
You think it's nasty? You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I've smoked them. I've fried them. I've done the only thing I like is doing a turkey breast. There's a company out here that does them that sells you these huge turkey breasts. I'm not even kidding. They must weigh about 8 pounds each. And they're just absolutely amazing to smoke.
Yeah, I like the dark meat. I like the legs and the thighs.
Yeah, those are good. I like turkey legs, walking around the fair like a caveman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so did you wait? Should we just bring on Mike?
He's already on.
Mike's already on.
He's already on. He's crowbarred
I've been
himself
here.
into this
I messed it up when I
conversation.
got here. I
I
apologize.
know. Listen, okay, we'll break from the format just for Mike. Hey, but Ryan, tell people who the hell this Mike guy is.
Well, we have Mike. Mike's back on the show. He's been on the show many, many times before. If you've heard of Serotech, Pneuma Solutions, Scribe for Documents, Scribe for Meetings, DocuScan Plus, and all that fun stuff, you've heard of Mike Calvo. Mike, welcome
And
back to
Rim.
the show. Sorry.
Rim.
No, see, I failed.
Yeah.
Don't forget Rim.
Yeah, it's awesome to be back, guys. I always love coming here, and I love listening to you guys. You're fun to listen to. Hey,
Yeah.
See, well, listen, we're excited to have you back. I'm interested to hear a little bit of updates about some of the business stuff, some of the AT that we love to talk about. But I also wanted to kind of dig into who this Mike Calvo guy is, a little bit of your background, your personal story, and maybe talk a little bit about just this stuff in general. So why don't we start with just assuming that whoever's listening today aren't familiar with your past appearances. Maybe give us a little bit of a snapshot of just who you are, a little bit of your background.
why not? Let's break out my sordid past. No, my name's Mike Calvo. I've been in the AT industry for many, many, many years. Years ago, I grew up in Miami. I'm Cuban by descent. My parents are Cuban immigrants. They came here in the 60s. And I don't sound Latino at all, but I am. Lo prometo, I promise. And I speak fluent Spanish. But ironically enough, I used to do voiceovers and stuff. And when I was growing up, we all were taught to sound Caucasian. I'm not even kidding. We were told to be like that, that we couldn't sound regional. So like not sounding regional made you into like a white guy from the Midwest, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. But, as you can see, I've pretty much picked it up. Because from Miami, we're like more like, yo, dog, what's up? It's a little bit more of a patois, Spanglish, whatever. A lot more street, if you will. Anybody who's heard Pitbull or any of the folks from Miami knows what I'd be talking about. But I digress. I went to school here in Dade County in Miami and did not do well in school. School wasn't my game. I didn't understand bureaucracy. I didn't understand that we were expected as blind people to advocate for ourselves. I never met any other blind people growing up. I'll never forget the first time I saw a blind person smoking a cigarette. And I smoked cigarettes at the time. I do not now. I've quit many, many, many years ago. And I'm like, they smoke? Do they smoke weed? Do they do anything? And I was like, yeah, they do. I was like, oh my God, you know, but did a lot of crazy stuff, grew up in the 80s. And anybody who's seen Miami Vice can imagine what my life was like. And it was kind of like that. Um, got my girlfriend pregnant when I was 21. I was at that time I was doing music. I owned a recording studio. Um, and and doing a little hustling. I tell people, and you'll hear me say some spiritual stuff as I talk, because it's truly what I believe. I'm not a religious person. There was a moment a good moment in life where I identified much more with Christian values. These days, I identify much more with deism. I don't know who's out there. Obviously, from the condition of this world, they're not paying much attention, whoever they are, in my opinion. But, then again, we have free will. So with my purpose, which I really believe that I was sent here to do, I focus on leading teams to change people's lives. And I'm just an old guy who's been around the block a few times and not afraid to share my past, because if you learn about my past and what a challenge it was, it just might change your future. I'm a blind kid who grew up with no mentorship except for dopers and mob guys and that kind of stuff. My parents, God bless them, they're beautiful people, hardworking immigrants that didn't have time. And that's one of the challenges that you face when you come to a new country. It's either raise my family or put food on the table for them, and we
Right.
always had food, but we didn't have much of dad around, and mom did the best she could, but it's hard, man. So, so we were a handful, and I especially was. So, when I was 21, I went and I got a job. I dropped out of high school, by the way, because in my 12th grade year, they didn't order my books, and I was not going to go through all the BS of finding readers and all that stuff, because I was making too much money, doing dope and, doing music, so, and they tell me like, hey, if you don't work hard, you're never going to make any money. I'm like, dude, I'm not working hard now and I'm making money. What's wrong with you people? Obviously the short thoughts of a 17-year-old. But grew up in that craziness. And when I found my fiance in a family way, we sped up the process. We got married, and I went to go work at a bank. And that was my introduction to computers. I'd never, I lie. I had been involved in computers. I'd been in computers for two things. One, we were hacking. I was working with a group of guys that were hacking. Remember back in the day, anybody here do phone freaking, Ryan, or any of that kind of stuff? Any of the where you would get you'd call this number and you'd punch in card numbers, and you'd be able to make long distance calls. And those of us who were really good with numbers could make up the numbers and find the patterns. Others who didn't, we'd get hackers like I did to write software that would go and figure out the numbers. And between that and Voyatra, which was a product that I used to use for recording audio, for recording MIDI stuff back in the day, that's the only exposure I had to computers. So when I got to the bank, I went to the Lighthouse. They trained me on TSI stuff, on Vert and Vert Plus at the time, and trained me how to use the system at the bank. And I went there and found that I had as my first real mentor in life, Greg Luther, said, you got a knack for this stuff. And he told me, behind that keyboard, Calvo, you're an equal. And I really took that to heart. And Greg was from Iowa, so I'd be remiss if I didn't use one of his Iowa isms. And he told me, "You're going to take like a duck to water to this." And Greg's a great man, and I love him dearly. And I can honestly say that was one of the key people in my life that made a huge difference and believed in me and told me they did, and followed it up with not just BS, but actual time. So I went to work, and I had, when you're an immigrant kid, you learn to hustle, you learn to, the joke is, how many jobs do you got, you know? Um, and I grew up, hustling, not just DJ. I DJ'd parties, I did tapes, I worked at clubs, and I went to school too, and it was crazy. But I came from an entrepreneurial background, and when I got into the bank, you got to picture this. I'm about 5'7" at the time. I weighed about 125 pounds. I've got long hair down past my shoulders in a perm. I'm in a suit, and I'm like, so when am I gonna be the president of this bitch? You know, and my manager was like, well, we don't know what to do with you people. What do you mean us people? What people are you talking about? We don't know what to do with blind people. Somebody trained you on how to use the computer, and I was doing collections at the time. I was doing collections in the morning and customer service in the afternoon at a bank. And I learned so much about communication at that bank. But I learned one thing real fast, and that is that the world of working for someone else was not going to work for me. Unfortunately, we have an 85% unemployment rate amongst our community, and it's because of ignorance. When I got into developing software 25 years ago, I thought naively that the issue was technological. And unfortunately, it's heartbreaking to realize after 25 years that the unemployment rate is still 85%. It was then, and it is today. We're on a new era now of AI, and hopefully that'll give us a little bit more independence. DEI, as much as our current administration hates it, did a lot to raise awareness, to get the dialogue going, to get people to not be embarrassed to say, this is who I am and this is how I do stuff. So I'm sorry, I've just kept talking and talking and not let anybody say anything.
No,
So
that's great. That's perfect. No, I went and got a coffee. It was great. No,
let's let this guy ramble on, and I'll go get a coffee.
no, you're our dream guest. No, I wanted to go back a little bit and talk about your childhood, because it really seems to me that part of that experience growing up informed your attitude later on, and helped inform this entrepreneurial spirit that you seem to have had very young.
So I grew up in Miami, like I said. I mean, my parents, and I realized this later, after I talked to my dad. And my mom and dad are blue collar folks. My mom was a waitress, a server, and my dad was a carpenter slash handyman as we grew up. So as you can imagine, my mom worked and my dad worked when he had it, when he could work, as a blind kid. And I don't know, Ryan, if you dealt with this, but nobody held me accountable, man. Nobody said, you got to do this. I believe in this. I believe in that. In fact, if anything, I was told that to not shoot my aspirations too high, to quote, be normal, end quote, to try and just fit in, that I was going to have to work 3 times as hard as everybody else. And my attitude was like, that's BS. I'm not going to, no. I want to be successful in my life. I don't know how I'm going to be successful, but I don't want to be mediocre. I don't want to aspire to mediocrity. I wanted to be a lawyer, you know. Now, after one day I was sitting, a true story. I'm sitting in therapy, I'd gone through a divorce, and I was like, man, my head's all fucked up. My head's all messed up, and I got to get some therapy. So I'm sitting with my therapist, and I'm talking to him. And I'm like, dude, this and that. I wanted to be a lawyer, and he's like, really? He said, well, you sat here and told me how you used to deal drugs and you used to be DJs. Where was lawyering in all of that? And I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I wasn't on that path, but I wanted to be. I wanted, and to me, that was kind of like the moment I could get out of the game, the moment I could get off the streets and I had a purpose that I really found it, I was like, I got this. Because let me tell you something, you don't make money in AT.
Oh,
There's not,
tell me about it.
yeah, there's not a shitload of money here. But you know what? There's a hell of a lot of just people that live for what you do. The teams I've led have changed the lives of hundreds of thousands of blind people. SA to Go was one of our most amazing creations. It was the world's first screen reader that you could literally walk up to any computer anywhere on the planet, go to a website and make that thing freaking talk. I had people in Africa. I had people all over the world, and we made it free. Jesus, what an accomplishment. Did it mean a lot of money? Hell no. But you know what? It changed the freaking world, man, for some people. And that's what makes me tick. I want this fucking place to be different when I leave it than when I got here. And I want to be responsible for making it different. I am loudmouth, I'm opinionated, I'm foul mouthed, and I'm too old to freaking change today.
Okay.
And I don't give a shit. I don't want to change. It's when I was in my 20s, I swore I knew it all. And when I got into my 30s, I started to suspect that I don't know as much as I thought I did. When I got into my 40s, I was like, shit, man, I'm here to learn. I'm not, And when I got to my 50s, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm going to say what I got to say, think what I've got to think, and make my opinions known. And whoever likes it, great. And if you don't, hey, you're welcome to your opinion. You know, but I don't, my life growing up was tumultuous and I had to learn to inspire myself because nobody else that I met early on in my life found me inspirational, unless I was just that I was blind and I could tie my shoes. I mean, Ryan, you run into that, right? You're amazing. You got dressed all by yourself. You have a wife? And kids? How'd you do that? You got to know. I mean, and it's insane to me, because and this is why at Numa at Serotech, we take diamonds in the rough. We've never hired outside of the community. The first two people I ever hired outside of the community were my assistant, Sean, she Sean, we call her because we have a guy named Sean, and he's he Sean, and she's she Sean, and my son David Calvo, which just joined our team in January. Only sighted people that I've ever hired outside of everybody else has come through us through Voc Rehab or whatever. And in fact, in 2010, I was interviewed for Business Week, and I said to the lady, I said, if you're blind, you've got a better chance of getting a job than if you're sighted. And she said, that's reverse discrimination. I said, sue me. And you can look that up on Google. But it's one of those things where I refuse to just be a number. Love me or hate me, you're going to remember my ass one way or the other. And that's what I live for. I'm here. I have an opinion. I have a view. And I'm open. I'm not dogmatic. I'm truly here to listen, but I'm also here to speak. And I'm also here to inspire and to motivate, not with a bunch of platitudes and BS, but with real, you know what, blind people, you can do this. We've got a community, if when I was growing up, when Cubans came to Miami, we were not welcome here. We were given the lowliest, crappiest place that we could have, and we were on our own. So Pepe opened up a gas station, and Lupita opened up a coffee shop, and Juanito opened up a restaurant, and and another one opened up a laundromat, and everybody started working for everybody. And we started helping each other. Did we make the same as money as the gringos? No. But one day, the gringos came knocking at the door. Oh my God, these people got money. And they put a McDonald's in the middle of the Cuban neighborhood, you know, and all of a sudden we assimilated because we were a financial and a political pawn. And unfortunately, that's just the way the world works in the United States, and that's why the Latino community built this city. But we didn't build it because anybody, we built it ourselves. And I took that and I saw it when I saw blind people who've been so disenfranchised. The internet is the most amazing creation for our community ever. I mean, I don't know about you, but I only met like three blind people, four blind people that when I was growing up, and they were folks with multiple handicaps. So it's like, what's wrong with me? I'm a fish out of water.
Mm.
I don't fit here. And then when I got into this community, when I started after 95, after I got involved in the church and all that stuff, and I got out of the game and really was looking around for figuring out, I met some of the most amazing blind people. I started getting on the internet. I started listening to this guy, Jonathan Mosen, who Jonathan has truly been, you know, one of my quiet mentors. Never knew he was mentoring me, but just a person that I looked up to so much and continue to today. Because Jonathan was a person who went through a lot as a kid. And instead of getting pissed off at society the way I did and rebelling and whatever, he got involved in politics. He took the smart way out. He did something about it. And I respect that. Now, this year, we're doing stuff with corporates. We're doing stuff, accessibility and AI and all of that stuff has just really changed the trajectory of where our community can go, what it means for entrepreneurship in our community. Tools have gotten more accessible.
Mm.
We've gotten more connected as a community. Hopefully, the youngins that are coming up now, they don't do what folks in poor neighborhoods have done. And, I've seen this all my life where somebody gets out, they get a couple of bucks and they get out the hood and you know, they just leave it behind. That was the old me. No, man, you know, you need to serve. You need to be a part of the change for the future, and that's kind of what I've dedicated my life to. We mentor. We have people that intern with us. We've got people on staff that are on the spectrum, and they're doing software development with us, because we believe that everybody has a value, and we're going to find that value. And if we got to work with you a little harder, and we've got to work with a voc rehab agency to get you the proper tools and that's why I was a rehab engineer for years. I know how to write the best justification you ever seen. I played
Yeah.
the game, and and have I become a millionaire? No, I don't care.
So I want to step back and because I'm really curious about something you were talking about earlier, and that's the idea of the corporate culture and inclusion. And I feel like you're in a fairly you've got a fairly unique viewpoint because you do have this you are really an entrepreneur at heart, and you've had this experience of working in sort of mainstream and building your own assistive technology company and being involved in that. Can you talk a little bit about the differences that you notice in the culture of organizations that include people with disabilities in both in their staff or even in their leadership and those that don't?
There's three types, I think. This is my opinion. This is not fact. This is just my opinion based on what I've observed. There's three types. There's the companies that don't give a damn. Then there's the companies that are kind of like, oh, we're going to hire people with disabilities because it's the right thing. It's kind of patronizing. And then there's the people that really care, that are really, and I've seen them all. I've worked with them all. I've done some, some talking to executives. Again, under NDA, I'm not allowed to talk about who I've gone to mentor or to talk to, but I've talked to higher level executives where it's like, so what do we do with our people with disabilities? Or what if they're late every day? Well, you fire their ass. That's all. They got to get to work like everybody else. Blindness or wheelchairs, or that's not a damn excuse. No, get your ass to work on time. If you need to leave 2 hours early, well, that's your problem. you know. But I've found that companies, when even kind of the patronizing ones that are like, well, we like giving people with special needs opportunities, you know, even they ultimately change their tunes because what we need is a community. What we need as folks with disabilities is an opportunity for you to see that we do what you do. We may just do it a little different, but we do what you do. And sometimes we do it better.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, how do you think inclusion affects things like innovation? Because, it's often been said that, hey, folks with disabilities, they're the world's greatest hackers because they're constantly, hacking life
Life hacks, yeah.
every day. So on a corporate level, do you think that including folks from the disability community really sort of supercharges this sense of innovation within a company?
I do. I think that it's a two-way street, though. We have to have an open mind. We have to be willing. I mean, it's frustrating as a blind person, man, to tell the fifth person today how I lost my sight. You know, it's really hard when I'm on a date with my significant other and the 10th person comes along and tells me about their freaking dog because I got a dog laying down next to me. But you've got to. You've got to. It's not your obligation. It's not like you got to do this. It's just if you really want the world that you live in to be a better place, then help be that change and help people understand. There's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. And, my cure for stupidity would land me in jail for the rest of my life. So I don't deal with stupid people. But ignorance, it's just through communication. It's through, I see you have a job opening. Um, and just, talking about the elephant in the room. I know you're wondering, how the hell does a blind guy do that? Well, let me tell you, let me show you. Let me show you how I do this thing, you know. Um, and the first thing I tell any leadership, any people in leadership is, listen, folks, we empathy is a seriously double-edged sword because yes, we're supposed to be, compassionate and understanding about the needs of others. But there's a place where your shoes will never fit on my feet and mine will never fit on yours. I've been doing this blind thing for a long ass time. And Rob, right? Is it Rob? I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So you can edit that out. And Rob, you're the sighted guy. Steve, you're the sighted guy. You
Yep.
know, so, you saying, well, I don't know if Mike or Ryan can do that because if I lost my sight tomorrow, you lost me right there, bro. Because if you lost your sight tomorrow, it would be a freaking tragedy. You'd survive, and being blind is a big old pain in the butt. It's inconvenient, but it's over. You can overcome it. Do you believe that there's people who'd rather have stage 4 cancer than be blind? Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I've heard people make statements like that, and
Yeah.
I think they're largely centered in ignorance. But you know, people have opinions.
Yeah. But so empathy goes a certain degree. I literally sat in a job interview at one of the moments in my crazy life in 2004 where Serotech was not doing very well, right before System Access came out. Um, and I actually went to go look for a job with a company that shall remain nameless. And the guy kept me there for an hour talking to me about this and about that. I'm like, dude, we're having a great conversation. If we're having a beer, it'd be great. But when am I going to be able to know what I'm going to do in this place? Well, I don't think you can do the job. Like, well, why is that? He says, well, I mean, I know our systems here. And I said, oh, I see. So in your great wisdom, because I knew it was done anyway. I said, so in your great wisdom, I said, you believe that if you went blind tomorrow, you wouldn't possibly be able to do it. So there's no way that a father of three kids at that time has been doing this for 40 some odd years or whatever could possibly do it. I get it, you know. And that's the way it is. I mean, we're here, we need to educate, we need to be patient. And I know it's hard. I'm I've learned patience as I've gotten older. And it may still not sound like it. Um, but we do need to be patient. I think that, like I said earlier, the world is much more open to diversity, you know, and I think that the people are much more willing to accept us with our differences today and put their own stereotypes of what a blind person is, what a person on the spectrum is, what a person, what just different disabilities
Right.
deals with. And I think that we've, all of that has to do with media, has to do with, I mean, we've got great people out there, like Molly Burke, for example, who she's a millennial, so she's a pain in the ass, like all millennials. But I love her. I love her because she's real, dude. She keeps it real.
Right.
And she's not my cup of tea because I'm not a friggin' millennial,
Right.
but or a Gen Z or whatever, but whichever one she fits into. I think she's a millennial these days. I think she's
Yeah, I think so.
but but she's up there. How does a blind girl put on makeup? How does a blind girl kiss her boyfriend? I mean, and these are honest questions that people ask. And she'll go up there and you'll see her, I'm so pissed off because I was trying to do this and that, and somebody came and grabbed my arm and dragged me across the street. Don't you know to ask me first? And all that stuff works, man. We just needed a platform and we
Yeah.
got one. So, I mean, did I answer your question?
No, absolutely. For sure. And because, I guess that's the sense that we get. We've been doing this podcast for many years and talked to many people. And, the conversation that always seems to come up is just, yeah, education. There are these barriers that just prevent, if we're talking about companies and inclusive hiring and all these things, there are these barriers that are preventing companies from seeing folks in the disability community as assets as opposed to accommodations or check boxes to check for their own sort of brand. I think that we've been asking for years, how do we educate? How do we supercharge this? How do we make traction on this?
I think the other part, and I dealt with this a lot. In 2007, I started a non-for-profit called the AIR Foundation, the Accessibility is a Right Foundation. And the goal of the AIR Foundation is to raise social awareness of the capabilities of the visually impaired in developing countries with a particular focus on Latin America, which is, of course, where my people be from. Actually, my people are from the Caribbean, but whatever, Latin America. Oh, America. Sorry, had to do it. But
Isn't
no,
that isn't that down there in the Gulf of America?
I still call it the Gulf of Mexico, bro. But yeah, it's funny. I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, I mean, and I've seen even like I worked in Colombia for years, for a couple of years, and worked with a group out there of blind folks that literally between us all, and the folks at Freedom Scientific, the first countrywide license for JAWS was in Colombia, and I was part of that the group that was trying to get blindness awareness happening in Colombia that year. That was it was in 2014 and 2013, 2014. And what ended up happening is because of our advocacy and working with the government and educating blind children from the moment they got into first grade were given a fully accessible laptop now in Colombia by law. And and again, it was just it's education. It's all about education. I met my wife and my current wife, number three, third's a charm, I hope, knock on wood. And she puts up with me, thank and bless her heart. And But I met her in Cuba, and I went to Cuba to study um, how blind people were, were trained there because, ironically enough, whether you agree with Cuba's political system or not, which I do not, however, you got to give the devil his due. And blind people in Cuba, if they don't have a job, it's because they don't want one. If they don't want an education, if they don't have an education, it's because they don't want one. You know, most blind people in Cuba are bilingual. In fact, one of the things I wanted to go and do in Cuba was to set up an offshore call center, with blind people working from home. Unfortunately, the regime hasn't changed there, and things have gotten worse to do business in Cuba. But, you know, the only people that, in my opinion, that benefited from quote unquote the revolution in Cuba were people with disabilities because for whatever reason, Fidel Castro had a soft spot for people with disabilities and believed that if you could lift a finger, you could work. And he treated people with respect, as much as that regime treats anybody with respect, but treated people with respect and dignity as far as being a human and being capable. And I saw that. If I'm here in the United States, I will be standing on the edge. And Ryan, hasn't this happened to you? Where you're standing on the edge and you're about to cross a couple lanes of traffic, and some very well-meaning sighted person runs up to you and grabs your arm. Stop! You're about to cross the street. Like, no shit. Do you think I just dropped out of the sky? I've got a dog or I've got a cane. I didn't just drop out of the sky. Please don't do that. Don't grab me like that anymore. In Cuba, on the other hand, I'll be walking down the street and I'll ask somebody, hey, how do I get to such and such a place? And they'll be like, they'll put their hand on my shoulder. They'll be like, all right, go down the street over there. Listen, you hear that? You hear the cars are passing over there? Okay, you turn left over there and then you go and you listen and there'll be music playing across the street. That's where you want to go. You need me to go with you? No, I'm good. Okay, cool. See you later. That's the end of that. Nobody's trying to help the poor blind guy. Nobody's trying. You're just another person. And wouldn't that, I
Hmm.
mean, isn't that freaking paradise?
Yeah.
You know, I, like I said, I want to say it over and over because I do not agree with the politics in that country. But let me tell you something. I've never seen a better blindness system than there. And that's weird. It doesn't make any sense.
What
Yeah.
makes that system stand out for you?
It's the respect of the society around it. It's the fact that, and who knows, maybe it's that we're all fucked up together. So, we're all in the same shithole. So who knows? Or, so we're just all squirrels trying to get a nut, as they used to say, who knows? But for whatever reason, nobody looks at me in Cuba and says, oh, pobrecito, oh, poor blind guy. Let me help you. It's like, oh, you're blind. Yeah, you need help to cross the street or whatever. No, I'm good. All right. You know, no well-meaning person breaks my personal space. Asks inappropriate questions. That are embarrassing for them to ask and for me to answer. It really has made an impact on my life that just changed it. And that's interesting. And it gives me a hope. And I'll tell you why. In 1953, my father was going to his mom's house, and he was 13 years old, and his parents were divorced, and he was going to his mom's house, and she had a blind guy there, and she's like, Carlos, come in and watch the blind guy. play the guitar. And my dad told me, he said, the blind guy, he had no shoes on, and and he was all ragged out, and his pants didn't fit right. And I'm like, I'm like, Mom, why do you have this blind guy in your house? If I ever had a blind child, I'd drown it like a cat.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a bad. My poor father. I mean, my heart broke when he told me that story because, when I was born 14 years later, he's like, God's punishing me. I'm like, no, man. God didn't have you in mind when he created me. Hopefully I like to believe that God had a bigger purpose in my life than just to show you for talking shit when you were 13, for saying stupid 13-year-old things. But that was a reflection of society back in that time. That's what blind people would do, man. They'd play guitar, they'd collect pennies, whatever. And now, you know, you've got blind lawyers. I met a blind MD in Cuba. Can you imagine that, Ryan?
Wow.
A blind MD. I was like, how the hell do you do that? He's like, what do you mean? I went to school. I know. He said, I tell you, if you got a pain in your throat, he said, I tell you, open your mouth. And I tell my nurse, look in there. What do you see? I see it's red. Is it red over towards the right-hand side? Yeah, okay. You got a problem with your tonsils. You need to gargle with water. You need to do this. You need to do that.
Right.
Yet as much as my country frustrates me these days, I would have loved to serve my country, but I can't. I can't answer the fucking phone at the Army or the Navy or the Marines or whatever. Why? Why can I be less than a patriot? You know, and that these are the kinds of things that we need to overcome, in society. So when I meet a blind MD, when I see the trajectory that socially that country's gone on, it gives me hope as a blind person. And it says, there's an opportunity here. You
Yeah.
know, there's an opportunity for change. And that's what wakes me up every morning.
It kind of makes me think too. It's, if you take the notion of these societal changes these societal attitudes that need to shift, and if you sort of transpose that onto the advice that you would give an organization or a business in terms of a policy or a mindset that they need to shift in order to really, be authentically inclusive. I don't know. Like, do you think that there's some similarities there that you can adapt one from to the other?
I do. I think that candid conversation, I'm not I don't deal with well, I in particular do deal with sight loss because I could see when I was, till I was 18, and then I have detached retinas, so I didn't see that much. But my vision, I had sight until I was about 18. I could see shadows and colors and that kind of thing. Um, so I did deal with sight loss, but not all of us deal with sight loss. We're blind, damn it. We're blind. The eyes don't freaking work. And that's it. And if you have a problem with somebody calling you blind, then that's your freaking problem. That's not society's problem. That's your problem. You need to learn to deal with it. And if that means you need to go to a therapist or you need to get around more blind people so we can say blind, 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 blind all the time, then that's what it takes. But don't blame the world for your sensitivity. Because I'd rather have someone ask me an ignorant question than not ask me anything. So political correctness has become our enemy, and that's where the fine line is between include the part of DEI that kind of bothered me some because we all had to learn a special language. It's like, really, man? I'm just a person that does things a little different than you. And if we can get past the BS language that we need to use for me to get that across to you, I can just talk to you where you can understand. And if you don't know exactly the words to say to me, did you see that movie on television? Did you hear that movie on television? Did you go to the movies how did you go to the movies the other day? I'm not offended when somebody asks if I go to the movies or how I saw a movie on television. I've met blind people who are. but because they're uncomfortable with their blindness, not because the person asked the wrong question. And if you're the only blind person that person's ever met, do you think they're going to ever ask another blind person again?
Yeah.
So as much as I hate being an ambassador for our community, it sucks, but it's real.
Yeah, well, we often say that, when you're a member of the disability community, I mean, like it or lump it, you're kind of an advocate 24/7 just by default, and there isn't anywhere getting around that, and it is unfair and it does suck, but there it is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all got crosses to bear, bro. I mean, too bad. But which one would you rather have? Would you rather have an educated society that understands and isn't afraid to ask if you need something, or would you rather have somebody who wants to do everything for you, doesn't let you ever do anything?
Yeah.
You know, I've trained hundreds of blind people in my life. And I'll tell you something, training a blind person, and maybe I'm biased, but training a blind person is probably one of the hardest things, one of the hardest groups of people to train. Ryan, I know you've trained blind folks, and we're all different. It's not just can we get our hands on a computer and take to it. It's do we believe in ourselves? Do we have do we have that curiosity? Was it instilled in us? Did people let us do things and make mistakes and recover from them? There's so many different things that make a blind person do stuff or not that has nothing to do with ability only. It has to do with social conditioning. It has to do with life conditioning. So we need more mentoring in our community. We need more open dialogue. We need more people staying here and staying here to serve this community and to be a part of it and to raise tomorrow's kids because they know how to use an iPhone doesn't mean they've arrived. They need to learn Braille. They need to learn to communicate. They need to learn mobility. It's disturbing to me when I go and I see some of these blind kids these days. They have a freaking person that walks with them all day with a little cart taking their stuff. Shit, my ass had to carry a cane in one hand, a brailer in the other, and a tape recorder under my arm when I was freaking in school, and figure out how the hell to get around. I didn't have a TVI drag that could drag me around, when I didn't understand, do the work for me, you know. So there's a lot to it, but I think we're still better today than we were yesterday. And I believe and I pray and I hope and I'm trying to be a part of being a better tomorrow, for our community.
Is that where the motivational speaking gig sort of comes in?
It is. I think one of my popular pitches or talks is called No Excuses, and it's society um doesn't expect much from blind people. If we sat at home, collected a government check, and did nothing with our lives, nobody would be surprised. You know, um, so, and I refuse to accept that. I refuse to be that person. You know, I've got plenty of excuses, but very few reasons that I can't do something. So if that's the case, what's your excuse? Why aren't you doing what beats in your heart to do? Why aren't you doing what you feel your calling in life is? If you can dream it, you can do it. I believe we have a creator that gave us the ability to dream and dream big. And with enough time and resources, I think that what the mind conceives, the body can achieve. I believe that implicitly. I mean, we had some investors in Serotech a couple of, for a couple of years, but Serotech was built on a lot of talk to our community. It was built on sweat. It was built on people. Matt Campbell is not only one of my best friends and my business partner today, but truly a person that has made a huge, huge contribution to our community because that man, you know, he's given his life to our community. And Matt doesn't doesn't make tons of money. None of us do. But we believe in our community. We love our community, and we don't believe that there's any excuse that excuses are easy. I mean, if you want me to fly a plane, it's not an excuse for me to tell you I can't do that. you know. But if you tell me, hey, you should go to school and learn to be whatever, you know, a lawyer or an accountant or whatever beats your heart, whatever you want to do. And I just say, nah, I'm not gonna. That's an excuse. I'm not. I don't like that. I don't. That's an excuse. And why are we gonna do that? You know. So to me, it's like I have 100 different excuses to not do anything, and I still get up every day and I go do something. So what's yours for not doing what you want to do? And that's kind of it's very confrontative to folks, but in a positive way. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't browbeat people. But yeah, so these days, Numa Serotech closed down in 2017. My business partner passed away. The legal folks just thought it would be easier for us just to, to move on and to do something else. We still have we basically have the Cero network, which is, the old Freedom Box and all that. Do you know we have people that have been with that thing for 25 years? It's like the Hotel California. They never leave, and most people, they tap out, they die. And that system, Matt and I have committed to just keeping it on. It doesn't make much money, whatever. It just keeps its lights on. But the people that use it, that's their lifeline, And I just talked to Art Schreiber, who's a guy, one of the Art Schreiber is a Cero customer, and Art he was the reporter for the Beatles. When the Beatles would tour, he was the audio reporter for them, and he would travel with them. And he lost his sight later, and he got real popular here in the NFB and stuff. But Art's 98 years old and still uses Cero and all that stuff. So I mean, we do that, but Numa was built to do, accessible cloud stuff, and we do RIM, and the new product that we have now is a product that's for, companies that have large libraries that are trying to meet different accessibility mandates, like Title II and the Canadian Accessibility Act and that kind of thing, that have a time limit, and they're just trying to figure out how they're going to make a dollar out of 15 cents and spend so much money on remediation, and we're trying to resolve that. So, I don't want to bore anybody with the details, but if any listener is interested in hearing about, making a large digital library of content accessible for pennies, reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Like I said, we're working with one of the largest content providers on the planet right now, and we've just signed a 3-year deal with them. So we must be doing something right.
Yeah. Hey, listen, and I know we're running late and time is short, but just out of curiosity, and hopefully this doesn't open up a whole can of worms, but I'm really curious because as AI and machine learning and mixed reality and all of these things are evolving fields. Where do you see the biggest opportunities and maybe even some of the bigger hurdles or dangers when it comes to assistive technology?
Um, I think the biggest challenge we're having right now is in the development tools. Um, I'm encouraged by watching the meta folks, and their realization that, oh shit, blind people spend money, you know, and the way and the impact and that our community has had with the glasses, with the meta glasses. Um, the technology is getting more inexpensive. It's getting more reachable for people. I think that everybody, whether you're in the blindness community, whether just anybody that is doing anything entrepreneurial right now is kind of sitting back and waiting to see what's going to happen with this new AI thing because and that problem has happened to us where we make up for some inconsistency of AI. We spend tens of thousands of dollars programming around a problem, and then, OpenAI puts out an update and boom, it's gone. And you just lost $30,000 of development money because
Hmm.
they just solved your problem and it's free. So
Yeah.
so I mean, I think that the biggest challenge right now, I've never felt that technology moved too fast, but I can honestly say that right now technology is moving too fast. And the irony is that it's moving fast and it's still developing. So it's kind of like you're building the car as you're driving it,
Right.
and the cool thing is that I saw I saw a post. There's a great list, and I'm sure you guys know of it, but maybe your listeners do not. It's called AI for the Blind. It's on Facebook, run by a guy named Sean Keen, and it's got like 6,000 members. Huge list. And you see blind people using AI to do music production and all kinds of stuff. And there's some drama there and all that stuff. But I love it. I love watching what our community has been able to do with these tools. And I think it's going to give people, with AI, AI is just a big lever, man. It gives us the opportunity to, you know, to write better, to do more with less. I'm hoping that it's going to get out of the hands of a few big companies and it's going to be something that the little guy can do. Because, like right now, with our technology, we use large language models, but we're looking to get money in the door to be able to train our own models that we can stand up and use our own instead of having to use the LLMs because the cost of large language models is just so huge and their impact on the environment. Nobody knows what that's going to be yet. And, I don't want to contribute to that, but at the same time, AI, I saw a post once that supposedly written by AI, and it says, you know what? I'm your best advocate because I've heard everything you've said. And that struck a nerve with me because buried in all of that AI stuff, buried in all that training is every bit. If you ask an LLM properly to give you an accessible version of whatever, it will, without you having to, all you got to do is tell it to make it WCAG compliant or whatever. And the AI has already learned, it's already been trained with all that stuff. So it's, is it biased? Maybe, I'm sure, I guess. Um, but it has gotten all of our writings in the past, all of our podcasts, all of our advocacy, everything has been memorized. So I got to believe that that's going to be used somewhere. It's going to change the future somehow, so it wasn't just done in vain. So I'm very optimistic. I don't know about finances and how that's going to do for business. I think that we're going to go through a tough time,
Right.
but humanity's resilient. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We've dealt with technology before, whether it be when we were industrialized or when with the cars came in and the buggies were out and listen, the guy who made buggy whips, didn't make them anymore. When got tires, made sold tires, but we'll figure it out. But I'm really hopeful and optimistic about the future.
I like it. I see. I like optimism. I like to hear that.
Yeah. I think it's great. And I don't know what it's going to do for us as blind folks. I think that we're going to start to see a lot more accessibility built into stuff because And I tell people what's a necessity for us is a luxury for them, meaning the sighted. And I've found that sighted people love their talking GPSs.
Hmm.
You know, sighted people love their audiobooks.
Sure
You
do.
know, and sighted people all of a sudden realizing that, oh, geez, having a verbal interface to something is amazing. So if we can get the guardrails gone to stop telling me that it's a person, but I can't tell you anything else about them, those kind of things gone, I think that we're getting to a good place. I'm looking forward to the new Envision glasses, the low cost ones. I've got a pair on order. I want to see how they do, and the Giga glasses also.
Yeah,
Want to see how they do. So there's some new players. It's cool. It's interesting. And I look at like what Ira's doing with AI, how they're all training. They're training all of these models, for AI, and sooner or later, it's going to work its way down to us, and it's going to be in your glasses or in your phone or in whatever that new thing Johnny Ives is making. And I'm really excited about the future and about the future for us as blind folks.
yeah,
I wish there was something that we could give society, but the only way we could do it is one person at a time.
that's right. One podcast at a time.
One podcast at a time.
That's right. Well, listen, speaking of, thank you so much for taking some time out and stopping by and chatting. This was delightful and it was great to catch up. And
Likewise.
we barely scratched the surface of what's on my notes to talk to you about, and so we'll certainly have to have you back. But before we let you go, please, sir, plug away. Where can people find you? What you're up to? Yeah, use this opportunity to just share anything you like with the audience.
So technology wise, pneumasolutions.com. Pneuma, we spell Pneuma solutions.com. We put the P there to piss off blind people. Not true. Pneuma actually is a Greek word. But Pneuma solutions.com. There you can read about our various accessibility solutions. MikeCalvo.com, that is my the blind visionary. It's a tongue-in-cheek thing. The name of the company and it's because it's an homage to my late business partner Michael Fox, who used to call me the blind visionary, which I thought was hilarious. And but we do corporate workshops. We do motivational speaking, training, all kinds of stuff. You can read all about it at mikecalvo.com. And that's about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, sir.
Thank
And
you, gentlemen.
yeah, please come back anytime you wanna chat. We'll be
For
happy.
sure, for sure. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, sir.
All right, Mike. Have a great evening.
Later, you too.
Take care.
All right. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Okay. What a talker. I love it.
Yeah, you don't have to throw a lot at him.
No, geez. But what a life. What a life. That guy's
Yeah.
his memoir is gonna be really interesting.
I'll go read it.
What, does he already have it? Is
From
anyone
street
have-
kid to CEO.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, he's already been there, done that. Didn't even talk to him about
Hey,
that either.
we want this second volume, Street Kid to Geriatric CEO.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's right. CEO to
The
bingo
grumpy old
player.
man.
Yeah.
Street kid to grumpy old man. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys that you wish lived in your local neighborhood so that you could grow old and smoke pot with the guy.
Yeah,
Just,
no kidding.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Bitch about the young folk. Ah, these sons of bitches don't know nothing.
Yeah, literally. I had like 7 or 8 sort of talking points and questions for him, and we got through like 2. So great guy. And I know I say this all the time, but we definitely do have to have him up back on again and maybe talk about something specific. I was really fascinated to hear about his thoughts about AI. as a developer, because I think that's really interesting.
Oh, we should bring Matt on to talk about that. Matt Campbell,
Yeah,
his partner,
Matt
because Matt
Campbell, yeah.
actually spent some time over at Microsoft as well.
Oh, yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
probably got because he's the main developer anyway, programmer. He would
Yeah.
probably have some insight into AI and what his
Oh,
opinions are.
yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll put that on the list.
January.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anyways, we got to get out of here. Hey, Ryan,
Yeah, Rob.
where can people find us?
I don't know. Steve, where can people find us?
Oh, I don't know. They could probably find us at home, or they could find us at the office,
Yep.
or they could find
Heck,
us online. They could email us at atbanter.com. They could go
yep,
to atbanter.com. They'd
they
find us
could.
there. They could go to canasstech.com if they wanted to actually see the stuff that we're representing.
Yeah,
They could even email us at
cowbell.
Steve or Ryan or Rob at canasstech.com or at atbanter.com for that
Yep.
matter.
Yeah,
They
it's like
could they
cowbell.
could go on to
Cowbell.
Facebook. They could go on to Instagram. Really, where can they not find us? I think is a
That's
bigger question.
that's true. We are fair. We're everywhere.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
fairly.
We're ubiquitous. We're yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, good
We're
word.
we're in the ether.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Wow, man, Steve working overtime
Yep.
on that. Man, I have nothing to add. No notes. All right. Well, with that, I think we can get the hell out of here. So, big thanks, of course, to Mr. Mike Calvo for joining us, and we'll see everybody next week.
Pudding.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions, as well as physical access solutions and augmentative communication aids across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com, or if you're in the Vancouver Lower Mainland, visit our storefront at number 106 828 West 8th Avenue in Vancouver. That's one block off Broadway at Willow. You can reach us by phone toll-free at 1-844-795-8324 or by email at sales@canasstech.com.